The Quiet Behind the Gas Station. Chapter 1. The Buzz. The old gas station hums even after death. Not loud, just a faint insect-thin sound under the sun, like something still working its way through. The pumps are dry, the glass cracked, but the hum remains. Eli thinks it's stubbornness. His father would have called it faith. He comes every day around 5. Parks his truck by the ditch and sits on the curb, Coke in hand, watching the air shimmer above the asphalt. The town rolls past him. A tractor, a kid on a skateboard, a woman in a red car who never looks his way. Everything passes. Nothing stops. The sign still reads, Gas Snacks. Ice, but the letters don't light anymore. Sometimes he catches his own reflection in the window. The beard, the lines that weren't there last year, the look of someone waiting for a thing he can't name. He used to work here, back when the register still beeped and the smell of diesel got into your skin. He remembers his dad behind the counter, chewing on a toothpick, saying things like, "Nothing good happens after dark unless you make it." Eli didn't make much of anything after dark. He learned to sit still instead. At dusk, June walks by, same route, same hour, every evening. She nods. Sometimes she smiles, but not enough to mean it. They don't talk much, maybe they don't have to. The town hums too, but softer. A place can die without anyone digging a grave for it. You just wake up one day and realize the sound you've been hearing your whole life is gone. Chapter 2. The Heat. The summer thickens. By mid-July, the air feels like syrup. The road sticks to your shoes. The sky turns that bruised yellow that makes you think of old photographs, the kind that smell faintly of smoke when you open the box. Eli finds June sitting by the pumps one evening, smoking. She looks small in the heat, like the world around her has expanded and left her behind. "You shouldn't sit there," he says. "Ground's hot enough to fry you." She smirks. "Guess that'd save me dinner." They talk for a while, about nothing that matters. About how the high school's football team lost again. About how the church replaced its roof but not the preacher. About how the town dog went missing and no one seemed surprised. June says she wants to leave. "Where to?" he asks. "Anywhere with better air, or worse, just different." He nods. It's the kind of thing people hear say like it's a spell, as if naming the desire might make it real. But nobody leaves. They just get quieter. When the sun goes down, they both listen. The hum of the broken sign, the low groan of crickets, the pulse of something still alive under all this stillness. And for the first time in a long time, Eli thinks maybe the station isn't the only thing that refuses to die. Chapter 3. The Leaving Season. By late August, the heat broke, but not in a clean way. It rained once, just enough to smear the dust into a kind of mud that clung to shoes and tires. The air smelled of wet rust. Somewhere, a generator kept coughing itself awake. June stopped showing up for a few days. Eli waited anyway. He told himself he wasn't waiting, just sitting, same as always. But every truck that passed made him look up. Then, one night, he saw her at the diner. Her hair was shorter, uneven like she'd done it herself. There was a duffel bag by her feet. "You heading somewhere?" he asked. She shrugged. "My cousin's in Atlanta. Says she's got a couch." He nodded. "That's something." "Yeah, something." They stood outside after, by the parking lot, lights that turned everything the color of spoiled milk. "I'll probably come back," she said. "Everybody says that," Eli replied. "Yeah, but I might mean it." He almost reached out then, maybe to touch her shoulder, maybe to stop her, but didn't. She smiled, small and tired, and walked off into the heat that still hadn't learned how to die right. The next morning, the diner was quiet. Her name came up once or twice that week, then stopped coming up at all. The town folded her absence the same way it folds everything. Neat, unremarkable, like a receipt you never plan to use again. Eli started sitting at the station earlier before the sun got mean. The hum was weaker now. Or maybe it was just his hearing. Chapter 4. The Sound of Nothing. By September, the weeds had swallowed the curb. A sign went up by the road, property for sale, inquire at county office. The county never came, though. Nobody did. Eli sat there one last time, Coke bottle sweating in his hand. A cloud of gnats circled his knee. Across the highway, the field had gone to seed, wild, yellow, restless. He thought of June's voice, low and certain. Anywhere, with different air. He tried to picture her in Atlanta, but couldn't. Maybe she was still in a diner somewhere, still wiping counters that smelled of bleach and pie crust. Maybe she wasn't anywhere at all. The hum from the sign flickered once, twice, then stopped. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It had weight, like something settling into the ground for good. Eli stood, brushed the dirt from his jeans. For a moment he thought he heard his father's laugh, that dry, amused sound that used to fill this place. But it was just the wind dragging through the weeds. He left the Coke bottle on the step, started the truck. The engine coughed, then caught, rough but alive. As he drove past the station, he didn't look back. But in the mirror, the empty sign caught a sliver of sun and shone, just once, like it was waving goodbye. Chapter 5. 10 Years Gone. The road looks cleaner now, but that's a lie. They just paved over the dirt, sealed the ghosts inside the tar. It's been 10 years since Eli left. The county finally sold the land. A man from Tennessee bought it, said he'd build a storage lot for boats, even though there isn't any water nearby. He put up a chain-link fence, planted a sign that says, "Coming soon," and then never came back. The weeds took over again, climbing the metal, finding the cracks. The town didn't change much, except quieter. The grocery closed, the school merged with another district, the diner burned down one winter. Some say it was lightning, others say gas leak. Nobody cared enough to check. Eli drives through sometimes, on his way to somewhere else. Always alone, always without stopping. He tells himself it's just a shortcut, though it adds 20 minutes to the trip. This time, in late afternoon, the sky hangs low and silver. He slows near the fence, sees the old station buried behind the vines. There's still a shape to it, faint, almost shy. The roof sagged, windows gone. The word gas clings to the rusted sign like an old prayer. He kills the engine. The silence folds around him, familiar, almost warm. Inside, the air smells of rain and stale oil. A bird's nest clings to what used to be the counter. Someone spray-painted "God bless this mess" on the wall, and it feels less like graffiti, more like confession. He sits on the curb, same spot as before. Knees creaking now, Coke bottle replaced by a thermos of coffee that's gone lukewarm. He doesn't think about June much, not the way he used to. But sometimes, when the light hits the road right, he remembers the sound of her voice saying, "Different air." He wonders if she ever found it. When he finally drives off, the sun is almost gone. The rearview mirror catches a flash, just for a heartbeat, like the old sign tried to hum again, remembering its purpose. Chapter 6. The Girl Who Stayed. June never reached Atlanta. The bus broke down in Montgomery, and by the time another came, she didn't feel like leaving anymore. She found a job waiting tables at a truck stop, started renting a room above it. The room had one window, a crooked door, and a ceiling fan that sounded like a slow apology. The years passed like fog, quietly, without edges. Sometimes customers talked about places they were headed. Dallas, Nashville, the coast. She listened, smiled, poured their coffee. After they left, she'd stand outside in the parking lot, tracing their tire marks until they disappeared into the highway's shimmer. At night, she'd smoke by the dumpsters, looking at the glow of the town lights in the distance. The world felt small and manageable that way, all its sadness flattened into a single hum. One spring, a trucker came in and told her the old gas station had finally been sold, torn down, maybe rebuilt. She didn't ask when, didn't say she used to walk past it every evening. She just nodded and refilled his cup. But that night she dreamed of it. The cracked pavement, the dry weeds, the boy with the Coke bottle who never said much. In the dream, the sign buzzed again, and everything smelled like wet grass and gasoline. The next morning she packed a small bag and drove out there. It took an hour. The station was still standing, half eaten by ivy. The sky looked like it was holding its breath. She stood where she used to nod at him, her sneakers sinking slightly into the dirt. The place was quiet in a way that made her chest ache. For a moment, she almost called his name, though she didn't know if he'd ever hear it, or if she even wanted him to. Instead, she whispered, "I'm still here." No one answered, but a bird startled from the roof, wings cutting the air. Dust floated up, shimmered, then settled again. June smiled, not happy but clean inside, like something finally clicked back into place. She sat down on the curb, same spot, and waited until the shadows stretched across the road. The silence was deep, almost kind. And when the first stars came out, the old sign flickered once, faint, impossible, and she laughed out loud. Chapter 7. The Boy and the Map. 20 years later, the highway cut deeper into the land. Everything old lay a little further off the main road now, like history pushed aside to make room for speed. A boy named Luke found the place by accident. He was 16, restless, running from a weekend that had gone wrong. A fight with his father, a slammed door, a truck he borrowed without asking. The tank hit empty before he hit state lines, and that's how he ended up on a cracked road that didn't appear on his phone's map. He stopped when he saw the shape of the roof through the kudzu. At first, he thought it was a barn. Then he saw the broken sign, half buried in vines, letters ghosting out of rust. Gas. Snacks. Ice. The air smelled thick, old rain, and something like burnt sugar. He climbed the fence, boots slipping on the wire, and stepped into the silence. Inside, everything leaned. A refrigerator door hung open like a tongue. The floor creaked, glass winked in the dust. Luke ran a hand along the counter and felt a groove worn smooth by time. Beneath his fingers, he imagined the weight of another hand, someone who used to stand there every day, waiting. He sat down on the curb, not knowing why. The quiet felt alive, like the moment before a word. Out of habit, he pulled out his phone to take a picture, but the battery was dead. So he just looked. Long enough for the sound of the highway to fade, long enough for the cicadas to fill everything else. He thought he heard a hum then, faint, low, almost kind. But when he looked up, the sign was still. That night, when he finally made it home, his father didn't ask where he'd been. Luke didn't tell him. But for weeks after, when he closed his eyes, he saw sunlight flashing on rusted metal, and felt a strange peace, like he'd brushed against something that still remembered being loved. Chapter 8. The Echo years turned the place into a myth. Kids in town said the station was haunted, that if you stood there long enough you could hear a man's voice asking for a Coke, or a woman laughing like she'd just remembered something sad. Nobody believed it, but nobody went there either. Except once a year when the air got heavy with summer, someone left a bottle of Coca-Cola on the curb. Always cold, always unopened. By then, the county had listed the land as condemned. Developers talked about clearing it for a storage facility, then an outlet mall, then nothing at all. The paperwork got lost somewhere between budgets. The station kept breathing in its own way. One evening, a woman in her 60s stopped by. Gray hair pulled tight, face soft with the kind of calm that comes after too many storms. She stepped out of her car and stood at the fence, staring at what little was left. The sign was gone. The roof had caved in. Only the curb remained, a thin edge of concrete like a memory refusing to die. She walked closer, brushed her hand over the rough surface. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "You waited long enough." A wind rose then, warm, carrying the smell of wet earth and gasoline. For a moment, it almost sounded like a hum. The woman smiled, left a Coke bottle by the weeds, and turned back toward her car. Behind her, the setting sun caught on a shard of glass. Light flared, brief, gold, almost holy. Then it was gone. The road swallowed the sound of her tires. The night fell slow and wide, and for the first time in decades the air round the ruins felt full again, not with noise but with something gentler. A memory breathing itself back into the world. Chapter 9, What the Earth Keeps. By the time the new century rolled halfway through, the old road was gone. A 6-lane bypass ran over it now, smooth and forgetful. The map showed no trace of the town, just a gray line between bigger places. But the land still knew where everything used to be. After a heavy storm one March morning, a construction crew came to clear fallen branches near the underpass. They found bits of concrete, rusted metal, and an old soda bottle half buried in clay. The label was almost gone, but one worker, a kid not much older than Luke had been, swore he saw the faint letters of Coca-Cola. "Looks ancient," someone said. "Trash," said the foreman, tossing it in the back of the truck. That night, the bottle rolled out of the pile and broke against the asphalt. A soft hiss escaped. Just air, maybe, or maybe something older. The sound echoed under the overpass, carried by the wind down into the ditches and weeds. Animals paused. Birds shifted on branches. The air changed, only for a second, like a held breath, then went still again. But for days after, people driving that stretch swore they smelled rain on the road, even when the sky was clear. One woman said she saw a flicker of light through the trees, like a sign blinking in the dark. They built a rest stop nearby a year later. Nobody mentioned the strange hum that sometimes filled the night air, faint, steady, like the world remembering how to pulse. Chapter 10. The Girl Who Drew Maps. Nora worked the night shift at that rest stop, cleaning, stocking, making change for travelers who'd already forgotten her face by morning. She was 24, a community college dropout with the sketchbook always half full. Mostly she drew maps. Imagined towns, back roads, the kind of places that might exist if you drove far enough. Sometimes, during slow hours, she'd wander past the lot to where the woods thickened. There, under the hum of the highway lights, the ground turned uneven. She found chunks of concrete and bits of old metal poking through the dirt, outlines of something that once mattered. She started sketching it, the broken curb, the hollow square of weeds, the ghost of a building her maps couldn't name. One night, she brought her thermos of coffee and sat there till dawn. It was quiet, except for the wind pressing against the grass. She felt like someone was sitting beside her, not close enough to see, but near enough to know. Without meaning to, she whispered, "Who were you?" No answer. Just a small vibration through the soil. Maybe a truck overhead, maybe not. She laughed, half embarrassed, half comforted. After that, she came often. Drew new lines over the old ones, letting the shape change with each visit. Sometimes she left a Coke bottle at the edge of the weeds. because she liked the way the glass caught the morning light. She didn't know why she did it. She just knew it felt right, like she was helping something remember itself. Chapter 11. The Name in the Ledger. It began with a name. One late shift, Nora found an old ledger at the back of the rest stop office. A forgotten book with curled pages, the kind that still smelled faintly of carbon paper and oil. It must have been left from whatever business had owned the land before the state took it. She opened it out of boredom. The handwriting was sharp, careful. Every line a transaction. Dates, numbers, gallons of gas, a few names. But near the end, the ink changed. The script loosened, almost drifting. 2 entries caught her eye. E. Marshall. Worn Coca-Cola. June Wilder, worn Coca-Cola, same day, 20 years apart. Nora ran her finger down the page again, making sure she'd read it right. The book shouldn't have even survived. The place had been bulldozed decades ago, but the ledger was here, whole, quiet. She felt the same small vibration through her hands she'd felt that first night outside, like something under the paper was breathing. That week, she started digging. The county archives gave her nothing but tax assessments, a map that showed the old station as Marshall's Gas and Goods. No photos, no obituaries. The librarian, a tired woman with silver hoops in her ears, told her most of the old records were never digitized. Fires took a lot, she said. Storms took the rest. Nora photocopied the map anyway, pinned it above her desk. The coordinates were barely legible. Still, she traced the lines, drew them again and again in her sketchbook until they felt like veins under her skin. That night, she dreamed of a man sitting on a curb, the sun in his eyes, a bottle sweating beside him. Someone walked past, and the sound of her shoes on gravel was the gentlest sound in the world. When she woke, her heart was pounding. She didn't know their names yet, not really, but she whispered them aloud, like trying on ghosts. Eli, June. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, and for just a second she thought she heard the low, steady hum of a sign that no longer existed. Chapter 12. The Shape of Their Absence. Once she had their names, the town began to unfold. It wasn't on any modern map, but you could trace its ghost in the grid, an unincorporated stretch swallowed by the new highway, old fences leaning into the earth. Nora drove out there one Saturday morning with her sketchbook and a thermos. The road narrowed until it wasn't one anymore, just a strip of cracked pavement wandering between trees. Then there it was, the weeds, the curb, the faint rise in the land where the foundation had been. She sat in the dirt. The air had that heavy, electric stillness that comes before rain. Nora opened her sketchbook and began to draw. Not from memory, from somewhere deeper, something between vision and recognition. The lines came fast. The pump, the window, the man's slouched shoulders, the girl's half-turned smile. When thunder rolled far off, she didn't flinch. She could almost see them. Eli, older now, dust in his beard. June, younger than her years but bright-eyed, alive in her stubborn quiet. It wasn't grief she felt. It was belonging. Then she saw it, the faint shimmer of glass in the weeds. She brushed away dirt and found the neck of an old Coke bottle, still capped, still full. The label gone, but the glass unbroken. The rain started, slow, warm drops that darkened the soil. She held the bottle against her chest, and for an instant she swore it was warm too. When she left, she placed it back on the curb, the same spot she always sat. The hum in the air had changed, not gone, not stronger, just softer, like something exhaling. Driving home, she didn't turn on the radio, she didn't need to. The silence had weight now, a presence, not a void. Chapter 13. The Photograph. A month later, Nora visited the county museum in town, a small, quiet building that smelled of paper and lemon polish. Most exhibits were dull: rusted tools, faded uniforms, a stuffed fox with one eye gone. But near the back, in a case labeled Local Businesses, 1940, 1980, she saw it. A photograph, sun-faded but clear enough. A man standing in front of a gas station. His hand shaded his eyes, mouth half smiling. Behind him, the same sign she'd drawn from memory, the same tilt of the roof. Marshall's Gas and Goods. She leaned closer. At the corner of the frame, almost hidden in shadow, was a girl's face in motion, blurred, laughing, hair caught by wind. The placard beneath the photo read, Eli Marshall and June Wilder, 1983. The air left her lungs. She pressed a hand to the glass, the chill of it grounding her. Outside, clouds were gathering again. When she stepped into the daylight, the sky looked like it had been waiting for her. That night, she pinned a copy of the photo above her desk. Next to it, her sketches, her maps, the lines that had begun as guesses and now matched perfectly. The story had circled back on itself. She realized, not without wonder, that no one had asked her to find any of this. The world had simply opened a small door, and she'd walked through. Chapter 14. The Quiet Again. Autumn came late that year. The air along the highway smelled of wood smoke and cut grass. Nora drove out to the ruins one last time. The weeds had thinned, the ground was soft with fallen leaves. She sat on the curb, the same old concrete spine still holding its shape against everything time had tried to take. From her bag, she took a new Coke bottle, the kind you buy in gas stations that still believe in glass. She opened it, drank once, and poured the rest onto the ground. The sound was faint, almost reverent. I found you, she whispered, both of you. The wind moved through the weeds, carrying the scent of rain and rust. Somewhere, deep in the silence, something hummed. Not broken anymore, just alive. For the first time, Nora didn't feel alone out there. She closed her eyes and pictured Eli on the curb, June walking past. The glow of a dying sign buzzing softly overhead. Then she imagined the world folding their story into its soil. A small, steady heartbeat that would keep going even when no one was left to listen. When she finally stood to leave, the sky had cleared. The sun, low and gold, caught the edge of the old glass bottle and made it shine like a star buried in dirt. She smiled, turned back to the road, and drove away slow, not fleeing, not chasing, just carrying the quiet with her. And behind her, for one last breath of evening, the hum returned, low, patient, eternal.